The River Dearne starts high up in the Pennines of West Yorkshire and flows around about 32 miles to join the River Don near Conisbrough Castle in South Yorkshire. We're looking at the upper part of the valley from its rise down to the M1, round about half its length. It's an overlooked area of Yorkshire. We start at the hidden hamlet of High Flats, drop quickly down to Denby Dale, well known for its celebratory pies, visit the Kirklees Light Railway and end at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. So, let's start high up on the Pennines. Many people visit the area mostly for the Yorkshire Sculpture Park near the M1 at the end of this film. But we're starting on the A629, the Huddersfield to Penistone road that extends beyond into Sheffield. It's 1,000 feet or 300 metres above sea level up here. The road was constructed about 1810 by the blind road builder from Knaresborough, John Metcalfe, better known as Blind Jack. We're first visiting the Quaker hamlet of High Flats. Although signposted, please park at the top of the lane. There is no parking or indeed turning further down. Quakers, sometimes called Friends, were nonconformists, those that didn't have the same views as the Church of England. The movement was founded by George Fox in 1652 and were outlawed until 1670. Although the hamlet was built by the Quakers, the house on the right is the only domestic property in Quaker ownership today. This property on the left was built as a school. The ornate gable of Low House Farm has the date 1717 and the initials of Edward and Sarah Dickinson, who built it. Turn to the left and the property up the lane covered in sets is the meeting house. Douglas Cossar is our visitor.
Ah, hello. Nice to see you. John, hello. Douglas Cossar. David,
Douglas,
hello.
Yep. Nice to meet you.
You're going to show us around? Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Do come in.
Thank you very much. After you.
Okay. Go on, after you first. Go on, Douglas.
Come on
That's
then and just have a look. Oh yes, I wouldn't have bothered to have taken my hat off at one time as a Quaker. In a meeting house like this, all Quaker men sat with their hats on.
Really?
And only took them off if prayer was being offered.
Right.
And,
so would you like me to put it back on again?
No, of course, not in this day and age. Things have changed. I mean, like in the old days when you'd have walked in, you'd have expected to have seen somebody in a peculiar outfit, Quaker dress, plain dress they called it. Now nobody in Quakers wears peculiar outfits. You know, it's changed so much. But this meeting house, as you can see, recently done like this, about 1856 actually.
Wow. But the building itself is
The building
much older
itself is much older. We are standing 6 feet above the original barn part in which they met. They had to meet in a barn in a hidden place like this because, of course, it was illegal to not be part of the established church. Mm-hmm. They had conventicles and 5 people meeting together and this sort of thing, could be arrested, and Quakers refused to pay tithes. So they had to hide where they couldn't be got at by the vicar and his myrmidons very easily.
And when did it start here?
Well, they were holding meetings here in the 1640s, but that wasn't Quakers, that was just seekers who weren't willing to go to church. And then by 1652, Quakers had started, and people like George Fox and others were walking through from Nottingham up through Balby on the edge of Doncaster and through here, heading up into the Lake District to the 1652 country. So we're pretty sure that they called in here on their way, because they walked through much of the route you have just followed from Denby. And so it's been a long established Quaker meeting house. And of course, since Quakers were not allowed to do anything useful like becoming lawyers or priests or go to university, they had to do things like establishing tanneries, establishing things, iron foundries, quarries, a home for inebriate women just up the road there that you will see from our burial ground outside, useless things like that. And it grew up as a piecemeal hamlet. I always say that it's much more a Quaker omelette than a Quaker hamlet. And now there is only the one dwelling that is occupied by a Quaker and owned by Quakers, and that is the Quaker cottage partway up the lane.
And you have a meeting here every
first day, which is what Quakers called Sundays, because of course they would only number the days, not use the heathen gods' names of them. And of course all these benches faced the elders' benches, which are still there.
The elders' benches are
There was coloured benches at the far end, and those are Jacobean apparently. So when they rebuilt the place, they didn't waste good benches and whatnot, they just jacked the whole lot up. And the elders and overseers sat and ensured that propriety was being observed during meeting.
And how many people would come normally to
this meeting? Anything up to 150 or so. Oh yes, on a standard basis. Even before the war, there were still 30 to 50 people fairly regularly in meeting here.
If you pass through the graveyard to the rear, you'll find a fantastic view down the valley. We're now going to return to the lane top and cross over the junction to see the rise of the river. We first pass a Thai cafe and sauna, hardly expected up here. There's also a huge earthwork that was an Iron Age hill fort that's over 2,000 years old. It was part of a series of fortifications along the Pennine watershed that culminates in the largest, Castle Hill, Almondbury near Huddersfield town centre. The Pennines were formed around 25 million years ago, when what was once a river delta was raised by huge tectonic forces, pushing up sandstone and with it coal, as we'll see further down. The river rises in some marshy ground just above a road and is culverted. It goes under the road just where the horse and rider is. This road was once a track used by monks between Huddersfield and Sheffield. Back on the main road, we're approaching Birdsedge, a mill village. The primary school was built in 1911. What is now the village hall was once a Quaker school. On the opposite side of the road, hidden from view, is Birdsedge Mill. The mill was built around 1800 by Elihu Dickinson. It was sold in 1921 to Zacchaeus Hinchcliffe, a company seen later down at Denby Dale and now used to blend cloth. It's also the start of a 30-mile long distance footpath, the Dearne Way. The row of cottages at left were built for mill workers, otherwise it's an upland farming area. There were once two pubs opposite one another here, the Cross Pipes that closed in the 1920s and the Crown that became a house in the 1960s. They were once at a crossroads of old roads to Barnsley and Wakefield. Further on is the Sovereign. This lies at the head of a very busy junction. In 1824, a toll road, a turnpike, which we're going to drop down, was built for cloth traders to get to the market halls in Huddersfield or Wakefield. We're going steeply down 200 foot to the village of Upper Cumberworth. It means the fields belonging to Cumbra, probably a chieftain 2,000 years ago. Here we're turning left onto Rectory Lane. The pub by the road, the Star, was where tolls were once collected until 1875, when travel became free. On the left, the school dates to 1820. Nearby, on the right, is the Church of St Nicholas. It was rebuilt in the 1870s, although there's mention of a chapel here in 1170. The stocks stand in front. They were a punishment, usually for drunks, and they were made to sit down with their legs clamped between the planks for a number of hours. The practice was discontinued about 1850. Let's now drop further down the valley to the main town, Denby Dale. It was once known as Denby Dyke, as it would have been a very boggy place until mill was built down here by the River Dearne in 1546, although the town didn't grow until the 1820s. The Barnsley Turnpike veers right, but on the left it looks like a toll house but isn't. It's a gatehouse for a mansion called Greenfield higher up. One of the oldest mills, just before you reach the rail viaduct, is Hartcliffe Mill. This was established in 1850 and belongs to the Hinchcliffe family, who have been cloth producers in the area since 1766. Today the spinning mill and dye works outputs over 1 million kilos of cashmere, camel hair and mohair annually. Coming of the railway from Huddersfield in 1850 made the town. Mills now wanted to be near here to transport goods. Douglas Cossard takes up the story.
Before the Industrial Revolution, in the first half of the 19th century, Denby Dale would just be a collection of farms, the usual South Pennines dual economy, bit of farming and a bit of handloom weaving. And it wasn't till transport improved in the first half of the 19th century, firstly by a couple of roads. The road behind me was the turnpike from Wakefield, and the road we'll cross in a couple of minutes was the turnpike from Barnsley, and they came here in the 1820s, which improved the transport links. But of course it was with the coming of the railway in the 1840s that the Industrial Revolution really took off. And this building that we're passing now was the biggest of the mills in Denby Dale. It still specialises in fine yarns, Hinchcliffe's mill. This viaduct, of course, is built of stone. This was opened in 1880, but the first viaduct over here, which was opened in 1850, was built of wood. And it was the job of one of the railway employees to make sure that there was a set of buckets of water kept along the viaduct in case of fire. But unfortunately, because the buckets shook so much when a train went over, they could only be kept half full. Otherwise the water would just slop over the edge. Much easier in stone. Well, this is the Barnsley Turnpike Road, and this is an interesting engineering feature. The railway viaduct doesn't go straight across the road, it goes across at an angle. This is a skew bridge, much admired by the civil engineers.
The railway station today is just a platform, and the line runs between Huddersfield and Penistone, where it meets the Barnsley to Sheffield line. The town has a variety of shops along the main road. And when you're almost at the end stands a pie hall that was built in 1964. Denby Dale is famous for its giant pies. Look at the size of a dish of a celebratory 1964 pie that stands in front and is now a flower bed. The first Denby Dale pie was baked to celebrate the recovery of George III in 1789, and a further 9 have been baked since, normally for national celebrations like the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815, Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee of 1887, and the most recent, the Millennium in the year 2000. The next village beyond Denby Dale is Sisit, again a rural hamlet until the Industrial Revolution. The gatehouse at the right on this lovely gorge leads up to Bagden Hall, now a hotel. Two brothers, George and Joseph Norton, who built Norton Fort Mill in Sisit, built large houses for themselves on either side of a valley in the 1830s. Up here they could keep an eye on their mill in the valley below. The next attraction on the gorge is unusual. Pigs in the Wood is a sanctuary for rescue pigs that are allowed to roam freely in the 10 acres of woodland. They can be visited Thursday to Sunday, mid to late morning. This is Norton Fort Mill the two brothers had. It once employed over 1,000 people, and they made what was known as fancy goods, ornate patterned waistcoats that were worn by the gentry, and later workwear for those working in heavy industry like coal mining and railway construction. Most of what you see today was built between 1886 and 1931 and has been subdivided into shops and small businesses. Set back from the road is St Augustine's that was built in 1840. Prior to that, you had to walk 3 miles uphill to High Hoyland. We're now going to leave the main road to go to Clayton West, a village that runs down the hillside and is conjoined with Sisit. On the right of the Methodist chapel, the dead-end road leads up to Clayton Woods, where there are high-level views across the valley. The woods were mentioned in the Domesday Book, later became a sandstone quarry, and in the early 20th century given by mill owner Henry Beanland for recreational purposes. There's also another church up here, All Saints. Like Sisit, this was formed out of High Hoyland Parish in 1872. Many people visit to see the stained glass work of renowned Victorian artist Charles Eamer Kemp. Let's drop back down to the main road, and we're approaching Springgrove Mill, and this was a rival to Norton Fort Mill. Indeed, it was built by George and Joseph's younger brother, Charles. He had jacquard machinery that could make more intricate designs. Although it closed in 1975, it remains a textile mill making pet blankets. The area was scattered with coal mines that were sunk in the 1870s, and we're now going to turn right where the former Park Mill stood. A 3.5 mile railway was built down to it in 1879, not from Denby Dale, but from further along the line at Shelley. Later, coal was transported to Elm Power Station near Halifax, 16 miles away. When that closed in 1983, so did the line. But in 1989, Brian Taylor formed the Kirklees Light Railway Company. He built, to begin with, the steam trains and opened up the first mile of track in 1991. The track is 15 inches wide, the smallest width that is legally allowed for passenger trains. It now almost runs up to Shelley. The railway generally operates daily in school holiday times from around 10:30 in the morning to 3:30 from Clayton West station. There are also special events throughout the year. Although single track, there is a passing place before it enters the 1,533 foot or 467 metre long Shelley Woodhouse Tunnel. At Shelley, where it terminates today, is a cafe, and where the trains are turned around on the turntable for the return journey. As you leave Clayton West, look to your right and you'll see a packhorse bridge that dates to around 1400. This crosses the River Dearne and climbs up to High Hoyland. We're now heading for another highlight, the village of West Bretton and its hall, the home of the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. At the roundabout we must turn right, signposted Barnsley and the M1 south. It's about 4 miles to West Bretton. West Bretton is an estate village to the hall. The main road passes through the middle of the village, but if you turn left by the school, this takes you down by the side of the village hall, where there is visitor parking. At the junction, turn right, and you pass the farmhouse with the unusual dovecote. At the end, turn left back onto the main road. And on the right is the ornate War Memorial. This stands at the top of Park Lane, which was the rear entrance to the hall and provides alternative car parking to the Sculpture Park. Along here is the cricket ground facing Wentworth Terrace, so called after the hall's association with the family of that name. In a field beyond stands the village well, dated 1742. The later pump house by the road is now a shelter. Next along is the home farm. The building to the left with a conical roof is that of a model dairy. The road leads down to the North Lodge, one of 4 lodges to the hall that were built between 1811 and 1814. But we're going to visit the park through the main entrance. Here we're passing the former Estate Inn, more of a hotel for visitors, that was built in 1840. On the left as you enter, it's Archway Lodge, once the main entrance to Bretton Hall and built in 1806. The main galleries are more easily accessed from the main car park. There's a charge for parking, but the Sculpture Park is free. There are in fact 2 parks here. The Sculpture Park that covers 224 acres, it opened in 1977, and the Bretton Country Park covering a further 100 acres. Today, more lands have been added and it has grown to over 500 acres. It all started with Peter Murray, a lecturer in art education when the hall was a college, and he put on an open-air sculpture exhibition in 1977. This started the idea to establish a permanent sculpture park, and it formally opened as the Yorkshire Sculpture Park in September 1977. The aim is to show sculpture outside of a museum setting. Partly the idea came from having 2 acclaimed sculptors born in the area. Henry Moore was born in Castleford in 1898, and his contemporary, Barbara Hepworth, was born in Wakefield in 1903. They both studied at Leeds College of Art. There is a gallery in Leeds City Centre to Henry Moore, and the Hepworth in the centre of Wakefield is dedicated to Barbara. But most of the sculpture is placed in an outdoor setting or in buildings associated with the hall. The hall itself was rebuilt in 1720 by Sir William Wentworth on the site of a 16th century hall. In 1949 it became a college, and in 2007 it merged with Leeds University and vacated the hall. 10 years later, in 2017, the modern college buildings were demolished and the hall is to be converted into a 120-bed hotel. There are inside galleries where the exhibitions change regularly. And by the entrance to the park is the former private chapel to the house, dated 1744, again used to house exhibitions. Gentle rolling countryside makes it easy to walk around for people of all ages. There are 2 lakes. Most people see the lower lake just below the chapel. This was created in 1782. The water that feeds it, indeed flows through it, is the River Dearne. The Cascade Bridge crosses between the 2 lakes, and there's a bit of an uphill walk to the Longside Gallery that opened in 2001, although there is a minibus service to it from the main car park. The building might look a bit industrial. It was a former riding school. But from here there are magnificent views across the park. We're almost at the end, the M1, but we're still following the River Dearne, even though it's mostly out of sight. Who would have thought it? Pigs, a miniature steam railway, a hidden hamlet and the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, all set in acres of rolling countryside. This is just one of our many fascinating films on Yorkshire, so why not check the others out? Indeed, they are drawn from over 150 talks on Yorkshire, so there are many more to be added. I hope you've enjoyed this one and will join us again.